Do you ever just come across individuals and you're astounded by their story and what they went through in life to get to where they are? You know, Neil Heritage is someone I wrote a Twitter thread on a long time ago. His story was so fascinating to me. It engulfed my entire curiosity in that week that I was researching him. And it was thereafter that I reached out and I said, hey, Neil, would you want to hop on a podcast episode and have a discussion? And it came to be. So this is that. Neil Heritage is the guest for this episode. And Neil, the key parts of his life is he was serving in the British Army for 11 years. He was on the bomb disposal team in Bosnia, Northern Ireland, and Iraq. But there was a particular moment in 2004 that his life was altered and caused many things to change. In Iraq in 2004, he was clearing a route for IEDs, and a suicide bomber got through the cordon and detonated. It was altering, and after all of the injuries and intense recovery, it put Neil to the test, and his family, I'm sure, as well. But Neil took it straight on and triumphed greatly and persevered and inspired many people. He went on to do triathlons, rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, skiing, and being the first double leg amputee to scale Matterhorn. Massive mountain. Like, come on. It's just an unbelievable story. He has a foundation called Climb to Recovery, where he just does even more amazing work and helps people similar to his situation through funds and such. So doing great stuff with great people and making the most of his situation, inspiring many, inspiring me to the likes of wanting to reach out to him, to even talk to him so he can inspire you. So thank you for joining for this episode. It's a special one, really close to my heart especially. So hopefully you get something out of this. I truly know I did. And I'll see you very soon.
I have a dream.
It's one small step for man.
I am the greatest.
You want something, go get it. Period.
Neil, I really appreciate you coming on. There is so much here. Your story is incredible, but there's so much to learn from it. And I know everyone around you, everyone that will hear this, will be inspired by it. So thank you so much for just taking 30 to 60 minutes to talk deep.
No problem.
So the first place I wanted to enter is I wanted to ask you about your entry point into the British Army, and then like what you did to get to the bomb disposal team, which was in Bosnia, Northern Ireland, and Iraq, but like how you got into the Army and what happened from there.
Okay. So I joined the Army at 16, straight from school. So we can do an apprenticeship in the Army, and that's what I done. I did a telecommunications engineering apprenticeship initially. After a few years in the Army, I then transferred and started working with the EOD teams, the bomb disposal teams. So very similar role. All the kind of more electronics and telecommunication side of that role, rather than I wouldn't have ever been the guy walking up to a bomb, for example. I did the more the background technical stuff.
And what were some of the main things that Army taught you? Because I know in one of your recent podcast interviews you talked about like something you would like to see in leaders is just leveraging the strength of teammates. But I would love to hear about really things you pulled away from being in the Army, because I know that's definitely transitioned to everything you're doing with your challenges, which we'll get into.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think so. One of the things you learn very early on, the Army isn't quite perhaps how people imagine, where there's one person in charge shouting orders and everyone else does it. It's quite a teamwork based environment where everyone's contributing. But I think the key thing at the end of those contributions is there's a decision made by whoever is the leader, and then everyone kind of falls into place and backs that plan and gives it their all. So I think that's one of the real key things that I certainly take from the military environment. Whatever that decision is to let's back it, let's get behind it, and put a full effort into making it work, rather than the other end of the scale is sort of sulking that it wasn't your way that you wanted to do it and that side of things.
Yeah, I see.
I say like buying in and making sure you have
Absolutely.
support from everyone. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense when we get to the point of talking about Matterhorn and other endeavors. But I wanted to ask you specifically within that not 5 year span, but like the span in which you had the injury up until Matterhorn. So like 2004, when the injury occurred in Iraq, and then up until 2016 when you summited Matterhorn successfully for the third time. Like in between that, I would love to really, really frack into like the process of rehabilitation and like how you mentally overcame just that traumatic event and then got to a point where you're better off in accepting yourself and just better off mindset wise to go on and achieve these.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent about a week in a coma. I woke up in hospital, surrounded by my family. I had a pretty good memory of what had actually happened. I knew that I'd lost my legs. And actually, going back to when it happened, I thought that was probably me. I didn't think I would wake up again. So waking up in hospital was a pretty good day actually. Because lots of people say to me that must have been, terrible. You woke up, you're seriously disabled, your career's over, and it's the rest of your life. But actually, it was a pretty great day in a lot of ways. So not only was I waking up, I hadn't expected to, but also one of the first sort of bits of information I get was that, oh, you're going to be a dad, and I see a baby scan picture, sort of pushed in front of my face, and then I've got a baby on the way.
Wow.
So it was kind of it wasn't really the devastating wake up in hospital that a lot of people imagine it might be. From there, rehabilitation's slow. It really is a long process, and it's extremely frustrating because you want to be better. You want to be better walking that day, and it doesn't happen like that. There's a series of operations over months for me. Just to get to the point where you can start wearing prosthetics, start learning to walk. When you start wearing prosthetic legs, there's a period of about 3 years where the stump is changing that you're walking on, so the muscles essentially wasting away that you're not using, and it's kind of constantly changing. They're very precise way prosthetic legs, so as soon as those changes start to happen, you lose the fit and you can't walk around. So it's a kind of stop-start process. Rehabilitation, you get going, then your legs don't fit, you wait a few weeks to get some new ones made, you're back in the wheelchair, and it starts again. Then for me, then there might have been some more operations that came in, some other things that happened, and in all, just that getting from the point where hospital bed to I can walk around without walking sticks or crutches, and I can do that all day every day. That took about 5 years, which I think there's definitely people who've done it a lot quicker than that, and there's some people that don't ever reach that stage. So it's really individual journey where for everyone. Depending on what other complications they might have around that, and I think if you sort of said actually that's where I wanted to get to at the from hospital, that was my dream sort of position to be in, independent, mobile. That was what I wanted. But I think when you get to these sort of points, you also think, I wonder what else I can do. I wonder what else is possible. I used to play sport. I used to like fitness. There's things I used to go out and do that I'd like to do again. And that was around that time I started trying some of those things again, particularly sports stuff and outdoor stuff, which is what I'd really missed over that time. I was lucky to get involved in some cycling events, some swimming sort of events. I decided I wanted to learn to run on prosthetics, which again, that took a long time to get to the point where that was efficient. Not because of balance or anything like that, just having the energy to do it took a long time to build up. And then that sort of led on to taking part in some triathlons and things like that, which I enjoyed at the time, and it kind of gave me that focus to push on a little bit with the rehabilitation, and I think doing that actually came back, and it makes the walking quite easy once you start going beyond that. It kind of helps you in your day-to-day life with the other bits. So a lot of benefit from that. So about 6 years maybe after I was injured, I applied to join a team to row across the Atlantic. And I think,
Incredible. The 51-day journey, right?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the time, the idea of doing that was about, actually, yeah, we're pretty mobile, walking and all the rest of it. But mentally, the rehabilitation, I hadn't really done any of that side of it. I was probably a little bit, nervous going out in public, lost a lot of confidence and things like that. And I think for me, I thought if I can go and do something, big in that way, that might help with that confidence side of thing. So that's what it was about, rather than I thought it would be a good idea to row across the Atlantic. It would be, could I get another part of the rehabilitation? And that was really, really what I did get from it. An incredible experience, one that I personally wouldn't want to repeat. There are people that go back and do multiple ocean crossings, but mentally very hard. It sounds like a big physical challenge, but obviously there is elements of that. But it's the, can you keep getting up every day and keep going again and again every day, which is much more mental than physical.
Yeah, they usually say like the mind gives up before the body, or mind gives up before the body, so you can keep going if you just keep pushing. It's all internal, which it's so crazy that it is that way.
Yeah. That's definitely what that challenge is, though. Just keep getting and going, keep going. But yeah, fantastic, and it really did do a lot for me, actually.
Yeah, and I would love to bring up one point I found. I think it was on your website in which you talked about the actual crossing of the Atlantic to Barbados, but it said here in quotes, they spent the Christmas holidays, which that's insane. You did it during that time. They spent the Christmas holidays slogging across the seas and were left without fresh water for 2 of the 7.5 grueling weeks they rowed across the Atlantic. So you didn't drink water for 2 out of the 7.5 weeks?
So what happens, maybe 3.5 weeks into our crossing, the water desalinator broke down that was producing our drinking water. And then we had a kind of emergency 200 litres of water between the 6 of us. So we survived on that for a couple of weeks. So it wasn't that we had no water, it was that we went from having about 10 litres of water a day to I think our first rationing down was about 2.5 litres a day, and then that finished at 1 litre a day as we waited for a sort of water resupply. The reason it goes at that time of year, actually, it's the longest sort of period of time outside the hurricane season, so it always goes over that kind of winter period. That being said, mid-Atlantic, it's still over 30 degrees in the sort of December, January time, but it's for that reason it's the safest time to go.
Yeah, it's along with limited water supply, you also have the freezing cold, and then also just being like a double amputee, it's hard enough. So I mean, just big, amazing, unlimited kudos to that. But from there, you went on. What year was that? Did you accomplish that?
That was 2012.
And I see. And then was it the next 4 years that you tried the 2 times of summiting Matterhorn, and then you got it the 3rd time in 2016?
No, so so over the next 4 years, I tried a few sort of new sports. I got into sort of scuba diving, skiing on what's called a mono ski, so you're sat down skiing, but great fun. And climbing was one of the other sports I tried in that period. 2016 was the first time we tried to climb the Matterhorn. At that time, there wasn't really any other above knee amputees doing that kind of mountaineering and climbing. So we had to kind of design the prosthetics and come up with a plan and guess a little bit actually to what we thought was possible or how we might do it. So the first time we tried to climb the Matterhorn in 2016, we probably got less than halfway, and nothing went wrong as such. We got it wrong, so the prosthetics needed redesigning. I couldn't move as fast as we'd hoped, was another issue, and we realised we needed a little bit more help on the mountain in terms of having those spare feet, having that extra kind of having that ability to camp on the mountain more times than we'd planned to. So we made a new plan. We went back in 2018, and bigger team, better prosthetics, and we did pretty well actually. We got up to 3,800 meters, so the Matterhorn's just under 4,500 meters. And on that year, it was the weather that held us up. So the snow came in 2018, and it wasn't safe basically to carry on that kind of mountain. And that wasn't really a consideration for me. That was pretty much everyone climbing turned around and had to go back down. And then we were lucky to get out in 2020. So we trained for it, planned it, and we got lucky. So in Europe, you're allowed to travel for most of the summer. The borders opened, the COVID sort of stuff had really calmed down, and we were able to go out to the Alps. And it was a great year to do it in a lot of ways, because we had fantastic weather conditions, which could be a bit hit and miss. But also where people weren't travelling, we had a lot more sort of space and time on the mountain. And we got an incredible sort of 3 or 4 day period where the perfect conditions, where we was able to climb up, finally get to the top.
That's incredible. I saw the pictures too. I couldn't imagine what the feeling of relief and accomplishment that would have been inside. Like how just to get your perspective too, because like my goal is to finish doing some like smaller feats on the ground racing, but then do mountains. Like how does it feel to reach a summit? Because I know it's important. The journey is the thing you cherish, but obviously seeing a view of like where you've gotten, that's a feeling in and of itself. So like, how did that feel?
Yeah, I mean, so it's been sort of 5 years at that point we've been planning or attempting to do this. So, I can't really describe it. It was pretty emotional at the summit, and not just for me, actually, for the whole team who'd been involved. And it just felt incredible and almost a huge relief for me, actually. I was like, I haven't got to come back and try and plan and do this again. And so that was great. It was just an incredible few moments. And we were really fortunate the day we got to the summit of the Matterhorn. There was very little wind, beautiful sunshine. And that is, very rarely the case up there. It's quite an exposed summit. So when the wind's coming across, quite often people are literally, touch the summit and back down off there quickly. But we were lucky, we got to spend some time up there and really enjoy it. So it was amazing. But one of the things that, I've said to people is, not long after I got back down, it almost felt like I'd lost something. I've been working on this for 5 years and training for it, and it almost felt like that's gone now. I've lost that, that hobby, that sort of pastime that I'd been doing, which was strange,
That's a good point.
Strange.
That's a really good point. And I know you said like a thing that motivates you, and I listened to this on another thing of yours, but a thing that motivates you is just like continuing to keep going. So it's interesting that you achieve it, and then it's like you have to fill a void with a new challenge, which we will get into, and I want to ask about kayaking the Amazon River. But before we do that, for context, I wanted to bring up that Matterhorn is one of the highest peaks in Europe and in the Alps, which is like just mind-blowing in and of itself. But I wanted to interject the question I brought up to you before we started recording about dealing with uncontrollable, right? Because you have this injury in 2004, you have the weather on your second attempt into Matterhorn, something you just can't do, and you just have to go back down. It's like just completely sucks. I couldn't imagine. So how do you deal with uncontrollable? And you can say it's a good question post 2020, but like how do you, what goes through your mind in dealing with the uncontrollable?
Yeah, so I think there's a few sort of points to answer that. So anything on the mountain, as soon as we go onto the mountain, the mountain guides become in control, if you like. So you hand that responsibility over, and they're very experienced, knowledgeable of the mountain, all the conditions, and everything else surrounding that. So sorry about that. That's my phone ringing.
No, it's okay.
I'll just let that stop.
Busy man.
Yeah, unfortunately. Although not a lot of work at the moment. So you kind of you pass that responsibility onto the mountain guides, and then and that's actually, it's not your decision. So it's a weight off in some ways. They're only going to do the safest and most sensible thing. Whereas if it was, down to me, you might think, well, push on when it's unsafe to. And actually, when you can sort of stand back from the situation and say it's not important, And that's the other thing I think I was able to do, particularly after the first failed Matterhorn attempt. I was pretty down for a few days, and but stand back and you think, well, actually, what didn't happen? You didn't get to stand on the top of a mountain. You didn't want to. It's no one's hurt. Everything else is fine. It's not that big a deal, if you can kind of take yourself back from it. And that becomes a challenge actually. Well, what didn't we get right? What can we do better? How can we prepare better, train better?
It's like how do you reflect without kind of drowning in your own reflection, and just to like be grateful for what you've accomplished?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly with the Matterhorn, we were told. So for anyone that doesn't know the mountain, it's quite a technical rock climb for that altitude. So it's not a beginner mountain by any sort of stretch of the imagination. So lots of people would turn around on that and not be able to do it for various reasons, who are able-bodied. So we were pretty much told this is not possible. So think of something else to do. but that sort of pushed me on. Actually, I really like the idea of something that shouldn't be possible. Can we think of a way of doing it? Can we change it a bit and make that a goer? So that was quite an exciting element, which is maybe why we stuck with it a little bit to prove that it could be done. I think I was always quite confident it was possible, given the right conditions and the right sort of considerations.
Yeah, I find that you're the person, if someone tells you to not do it, you're like, we'll get it done. Like, we'll find a way. That's even more of a driver.
Yeah, I think that's exciting, and not in a not because I've got anything to prove. I don't feel like I have. It's just because that's a bit of a motivator for me. I was like, I wonder if it is. I wonder what else is possible with my disability. And there's other people doing things who've got a similar disability to me that are incredible in totally other areas of life. And that's great for me to see. See other things that are possible or can be done. And I think that's really good.
Yeah, and a question I wanted to bring up was, if there was one skill that you would have everyone in the world relearn, what would that skill be? I mean, because for me, I did a lot of like kind of relearning and unschooling in 2020, just because I was humbled to all degrees and all facets of life. And for you, you had to change your mind because your situation changed, and you had to like relearn things. So if you would have every single human relearn a skill, like what would that skill be?
I think the thing that we all do badly is we don't listen to other people, particularly when they have some valuable information, So for me, listening to the people that knew what they're talking about in mountaineering was, what made it possible. And I think we all do that a little bit. Just there's a lot of expertise out there that we can all take advantage of. I think in all sorts of areas of life.
Yeah, I love that. And then going on to one of the important and probably time-consuming things in your year this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you want to kayak the Amazon River. How is that going? Where are you at in the process? Is it still viable this year?
So the original plan was to have gone in August. So we should have gone in August 2020. We knew fairly early on in 2020 that wasn't possible. So just to ship our equipment out from the UK, it needs to leave in April on the container to go out to get to the start for sort of July time for us to make a start in August. This year it's not going to happen just because we're weeks away from when we'd have to ship our equipment, and we're certainly not in a good situation with the COVID in Europe, and South America is arguably a bit behind us as well, so that they're not going to be ready by August time. So we're going to delay that one another year. We're really keen to go in August, and August is the reason we picked August. It's the river's at a stage where it's not flowing as fast as it does at the peak time, but it started to drop, and that's going to expose some banks that we can camp on the way down. So that's the idea. If you go when the river's the highest, although it's flowing well, you don't want to be kind of beating into the jungle to camp each night. There's all sorts in there. So yeah, there should be some more kind of beachy banks that we can camp on.
And would you do it like in an individual kayak, or would you go with a team like you did with the Atlantic row?
So we're in a team. So the team is 12-person team, with 9 of us kayaking in individual kayaks. So I'll kayak the entire way on my own, as will the other 8 kayakers, but we'll be doing it together as a group. And there's a support team there as well.
Got it. And I want to highlight too, I mean, this all wouldn't be possible without your foundation. So I'd love for you to highlight that. I don't know if the Amazon River one will be the same as Climb to Recovery, but I would love for you to give you space to talk about that.
Yeah, so Climb to Recovery is a charity that we set up in 2016, and what it is, it's for veterans and with disabilities, whether they're physical or mental, to come and firstly learn a bit of climbing and mountaineering, but then we're sponsoring people through the various mountaineering qualifications, so they can sort of be re-employed in that industry post-service. Really successful actually in the UK for people, particularly with PTSD and those kind of injuries. Find it really beneficial to be in the outdoors, to be in that kind of doing something active and really helping people move forward. So that's all the climbing and mountaineering stuff comes under that. The Amazon's a sort of separate project actually. Whereas I'm just part of the team with the Amazon, rather than it's my idea and I set it up. I'm very lucky that I was invited to go on that expedition.
Got it. And I do agree with your point. I mean, every time I need an answer, nature always provides it. Like I go for a walk, like just silently look into the trees or forest or the lake, and it's just like, there you go. And when you have an excursion of your magnitude, I mean, it's probably all the more. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I'm not sure what it's like where you are, but over here we're pretty limited on what we can do. But we are still allowed to go out and go for a walk in the countryside and things like that. So that is still an option for us. And I'm not enjoying being locked down, but that definitely makes me feel a bit better getting out in the sort of fresh air, having some exercise and bits like that.
Yeah. And I would love to resurface, because you brought up when you woke up in the hospital after the IED incident, you found out like you were having a child that was born. Guessing obviously she's like much grown up now, but like what was one of the things you really wanted to, or maybe are continuing? What is it, a boy or a girl?
It's a girl, so she's 15 now.
Girl.
Yeah.
Girl. So what's like one of the things you're focusing on teaching her, especially coming from a place in which people might look at you differently, but like your weakness is most certainly a strength, and you just want to relay that information to her. And I know parenting is one of like the best gifts you can ever be given, and it's one of the hardest things to do and most rewarding. I mean, my parents have 4 children, and it's like stuff they pride themselves on. But for you, what is that? Is that focus?
I think one of the things that really changed for me was what did I do with my spare time, and I try and instill that in my children, that actually you don't know how long you've got, and you don't really want to waste the opportunity and time. So we're fairly active. We're lucky we get out and do things. But when you've got children, you can encourage them to like your hobbies. So it's great. So as they get bigger, I've got people I can go climbing with and do things with. So that's great. Sure. But I think the idea that they can, don't waste too much time sat in your house when there's plenty going on out there, and hopefully they'll take that on as through life and enjoy themselves really.
Yeah, and in talking about that, like continuing to do the next thing per se, I mean, Amazon River, you kayaked that 2022. I wanted to ask about aspirations you have, as though like you're already aspirational enough, but like aspirations you have and like what you would like to accomplish in the years to come? Because obviously I love the doers behind the dreaming, but I love the dream in and of itself. So I'd love to hear that from your perspective alone.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing that at the moment is the charity, and we're trying to grow that. And so now, although it started quite small, there's quite a few more people involved now. So we're trying to grow that, get more people involved, and do provide more opportunities for those guys really. So when we went to the Matterhorn this year, it wasn't just me. I was joined by 5 people who'd learned to climb and mountaineer through the charity, who went out and climbed the Matterhorn as well. Not with me. I need quite a lot more time than more able-bodied climbers. So they weren't with me on the mountain, but they were there at the same time, which was great. So yeah, I'd really like to grow that. There's some other things other mountains I'd love to climb, and there's some places I wouldn't mind going scuba diving and things like that. So there's lots of things I'd like to do. Yeah, I'm not sure the best way to say it, but it isn't all about doing big challenges. That isn't really, though it seems like that's what I'm focused on. Actually, it's more doing things that I want to do rather than I want to do because that's a big challenge. That's why I'm doing it. It's a bit. It doesn't have to be a big challenge for it to be something of interest,
Exactly. It's still as potent if it's smaller, which I actually love because in doing some homework on you beforehand, I realized a big thing I got from you even before now is just like your simplicity and just doing stuff you enjoy. I mean, people kind of push the gamut sometimes and they want to hustle to get a certain thing, but sometimes those goals aren't theirs, where you're just like, I want to do this. Like you said, you got into skiing, you got into scuba diving, like you just do it because you want to move and you want to get better. And I think that's just a very like beautiful thing. Just like finding happiness in the smaller things, but doing things you enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely, you can go the other way with it, where you end up pushing yourself so hard you stop enjoying it, and then you've kind of got to step back and say, why are you doing this then? If it's not fun anymore, if it's not what you wanted to be doing.
And now that I know you better, now that we've talked, what is one question you would have liked me to ask, or one thing you would have liked to bring up that I haven't? Because I would just love to give you the runway.
No, I'm glad you asked me to talk about the charity, which is great, because that is probably that is the main thing I work on now, which so that is the main work part of my life, if you like, is running that charity. So I'm glad we talked about that. So yeah,
perfect. Yeah, I'll make sure to link the website below. Is there an individual website for the foundation? Because I know you have your own.
Yeah, Climb to Recovery has c2r.org is the is the charity's website.
Beautiful. I'll link that below, and if there's any departing words, I'll let you cap it off. But there was some great stuff in here, and I truly appreciate hearing about your story. It's profound. There's so much to take away, but just like a lot of gratitude.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it. So,
Cheers.